And we are live again. Hello and welcome to Developer Insights. I am David.
And I'm still Justin.
Together we are the leads on game development and design here at Codename.
Not only that, but we founded the company, so we've got that going for us too. We will be your hosts for this episode and every episode.
Unless we are not.
That is technically correct. Today is our second episode.
Hopefully it will also not be our last.
Well, why would it be our last?
I think we might get canceled.
Why would we get canceled this time?
The higher-ups might not like our answers.
Aren't we the higher-ups?
Oh, yes, exactly.
Well, let's just move on then.
Yes, that's for the best.
We're here to answer your development and design related questions, specifically on Idle Champions. But if you ask us about one of our other games, we'll probably be able to answer those too.
And if you don't ask us any questions, this time you might have to suffer through Justin's one-man reenactment of The Empire Strikes Back.
Now that's a good one. While we're waiting for the first few questions to queue up, we do have a few updates.
Do we? I asked Peter if he had any updates or announcements for us to give on the stream, and he answered with nope, all capital letters. So I don't know if that means that there's nothing to announce, or if there is, but he doesn't really want us to share it.
Fair enough. Let's see. I think I pulled a couple of questions actually from last week's show that we can answer while we wait for some other ones to queue up.
Sure. What do we got here? One of the later questions from last week's show from a player called Undoctu, and they're asking, how do you know the amount of red gems that Black Viper has collected?
So this is a great question, especially if you are one of our new Epic players who got Black Viper through that promotion. Black Viper's red gem, she collects them, and I think you can see how many she has by going to the by having her in your formation and going to the formation abilities tab in the in her profile, and I believe it says how many gems you have in that description. I'm pretty sure, and if it doesn't, it should.
And those are gems that, my understanding is, never go down, right?
That's correct. Those don't reset. Those persist through resets. One of the few things that persists through resets outside of equipment and favor and motor and cores and all the other things that do actually persist through resets.
Right. And here's a question you probably don't know off the top of your head, and that is, what is the highest number of red gems that someone actually has hoarded?
Oh gosh, I have no idea. I know the top bonus I think is 6,000 or 8,000, something like that. And I know one of the constant questions we get from people is about increasing that bonus so that there can be more power jumps for Black Viper after that point. And that is something we're thinking about. And someone says 6,500 in chat. I believe them. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely a number that could go up. And so if you've continued to hoard them, that could be useful at some point.
Yeah. I think aside from making you do the math on stream of like, well, she was released this long ago and you get this many average and something, but we can look that up and just have it as trivia for next time.
Let's make a note to do that.
Trivia.
We'll have to go through the enormous stats table to find what's there.
Hey, I didn't design it like that. All right, I've got another one from last week before we move on to this week's questions. I have Chaos Zero Frenzy asks, are there plans to make your own? Are there plans for a make your own hero mechanic?
So that's a great question. That's one we see pretty often, and the answer is not directly a make your own hero mechanic, but we have a really cool champion design that is of a similar sort, where you can make choices that are very impactful, let's say, to how that champion turns out, more so than any other champion we've done before, any sort of specializations we've done before. So definitely keep your eyes open for that when that comes, and just wait for Chris Dupuis to be on Idle Insights before this, and probably stream that at spoil that at some point, because that does seem like the type of thing that he would do. And I think he would be able to tell who I'm talking about if he were here.
We're not going to give him a spoilers show. That's just add it to the schedule.
Maybe that should be a show. Do you think players would enjoy that?
Probably a little too much.
Probably.
You'd also run out of things to spoil pretty quickly. You can only do that so frequently.
Well, you never know. I mean, Dupuy has a unique skill at spoiling things.
All right.
Let's look through these questions
and look through those questions. I do see the first question that came in here, and I'm actually, this one I think I know the answer, but I think you might be able to.
I can ask this one for you.
Sure, go for it.
Catch23 asks, is there any update on the fix for Spurt's Waspiration abilities not showing up in the formation abilities screen?
So, see, I was actually just going to confirm this one with you because this sounds like one of those abilities that's likely not
a global one?
It's a global ability. But I don't know. Do you know that particular ability off the top of your head? Yeah.
The Waspiration, I do not remember specifically if that's a global one or not. I guess one thing we can say towards that is there are some abilities that are global, like a easy early example is Tyrell's Moonbeam, where it just applies to all champions, and so it doesn't actually end up showing up on the incoming effects of other champions. It just shows up on the outgoing as a increase the damage of all champions. With that said, that is something that we do want to fix in the future, to have it actually display sort of incoming global buffs. Now, whether that's broken down by champion or whether that's just a sort of aggregate of all of the global effects that are going on, that's still kind of up in the air. But yeah, there's some abilities that don't show up in one place or the other for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, and that's definitely one that people ask about often, so I get confused by that one. Because I know that's, is it Tyrell's ability? That's the other one that shows...
That's the one I was talking about, yeah. Moonbeam, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I got an easy question for us down here. Lafarva asks, how are you two doing today? Justin, how are you doing today?
Oh, well... Let me think about that. I have a busy meetings day. I've been in meetings since 9:30, and obviously, like we're still working from, or some of us are working from home, and so I had meetings from 9:30 all the way through until about 1:30, and then I got in my car and I crossed my fingers that there weren't going to be any Sunday drivers out on the roads, and blasted my way into the office. No speeding tickets, so it's a good day. How about you?
I mean, a very similar situation here. I think I was in every single one of those meetings. Mm-hmm. And then I did find at least 20 minutes to play Fortnite over lunch, though. So
you got to play video games?
And we got
What's
a victory royale.
Like?
So I think, that this is,
wow.
It couldn't get any better than that. Or maybe it was just against bots. We'll see how that went down.
Man, I have not played very many video games since, let me think. My daughter's 11 months old. For about 11 months now. So that would be fun. Let's see. I've got a question here for you, Dave. The Mickey asks...
Wait, I know that name. That name is really familiar.
Yeah, it's a mouse. Very famous. You see him on Disney all the time.
I feel like this is a player who's asked questions about Switch and PS4 games on the Discord over and over.
Okay, well, the Mickey would like to know. They say the PS4 version of Idle Champions have bugs which make mid-game content almost unavailable to players. Game crashes, the pipe game for Modron Core is broken, and a few others. They've all been reported several times. When will the console version of Idle Champions finally get some love and bug fixes? Or what would you consider game-breaking to prioritize fixing those bugs more quickly? Thanks a lot in advance for your answer.
All right. Sorry, I was just interrupted there with a note that I still had it pinged as episode 1. So we don't actually have an episode title, but we are episode 2. And it's not May 6th. I am dropping the ball on this one.
Wow, there, Dave. You had one. Well, you had several jobs.
Listen, I got the code in. I know that's the part that people really want to see. So that one's right.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Okay, now back to why the PS4 version is so broken.
Yeah, that is a really good question, actually. I didn't realize the PS4 version was still in such bad shape. I know we made some significant effort on it last year, and it actually resulted in us ending up upgrading the Unity version that was building with what turned out to be the problem. There was actually, it was kind of funny because you had the ability to look in to how the memory was being managed on the PS4 version was really opaque. We couldn't get any information about it, and we thought, sort of after going over it and over it, we started grasping at straws. And one of the straws we grasped at was like, maybe, just maybe, if we upgrade the version of Unity that we're using, we'll get. Maybe there's something in the Unity version. Normally, when we think of normally our first go-to is that if something's not working, it's probably something we did, not something that's wrong with Unity or other like this. It's usually us. These are usually well-tested platforms, and yeah. So that was kind of a stretch. It wasn't where we initially thought we would go with that. And what we discovered when we did that was actually that in the next upgrade version of Unity, there was some additional memory tools that were put in place for actually measuring from the PS4 versus the previous one that didn't have any. But in addition to that, the issues that we were having actually just went away. And I think my best guess was that there had been some issues. They put tools into to actually be able to measure that. And then once that was in place, they fixed the issues that they had. And of course, the tools were still there for us to use. All that said, I guess there's two additional pieces on that. One of them is that we actually do keep our Unity version up to date for the Windows builds, but the version that they give us for the PlayStation SDK and actually the Xbox SDK is sort of locked into a certain range. So we don't actually get to upgrade that, which is why this was a bit of a last resort. And we could only actually go up so many versions before they cut us off on that. And we would have to, actually not entirely sure what happens with that. I think we have to go through a complete new review process, and it's treated like a different SKU, which is, I know why Peter really, 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 really didn't want to do that. But that said, the remainder of this question is, will we provide some additional love to that? And I think the answer for that is we can certainly do that. As I said, I wasn't aware after that update that we did sometime last year that the PS4 version was still having issues like that. So so I can flag that to look further into, and I'll bring it up with Peter because he might know something there that I don't.
Yeah, I guess kind of a related question to that is sort of how do we, or how do you, or how does the development team sort of balance their time between bug fixes and new content? Because obviously we put out a lot of new content in this game, and there's also, with new content comes new bugs. So how do you guys kind of try and balance your time between the two?
So I mean, that's a tight walk. That's a tightrope for sure. One of the things worth noting there is that while I was the development lead on Champions for quite some time, I've actually handed that off to Peter now. So if I say I'm going to have to refer to Peter on something, that's why. But specifically, we have a very tight content schedule in terms of tech that needs to get done in order to be on schedule for releases that are actually fairly time sensitive. And that's usually stuff that goes out on platforms like Switch that have a really long runway in terms of how long that they say they may take to do a review before it gets live on that platform. And so we basically are on that schedule, and then at the point at which those pieces are done and we've got a little bit of breathing room for that, then sort of the general bugs end up sliced into that time. However, if there are more critical bugs, those ones end up being put in front of some of that content and can be prioritized in a way that gets those fixed right away. And those are bugs that either going to causing the game to crash or causing severe performance problems can be an issue there too, or things that just make features just break. So if a feature is broken and it's a really significantly used feature, then that can take priority over the content schedule. But otherwise, those things get sliced in, time permitting.
And that time permitting can be a real challenge these days, with a lot of work from home and a lot of the pandemic stuff really impacting the rate at which a lot of studios can get stuff done, including our own. We're not immune. And so definitely I think that has affected how quickly we can get to the bugs and how many of those bugs we can get to. So it really is, like you say, quite the triage. Tightrope walk.
It's a tightrope, especially because we have some new features that we're working on too that time is being allocated to. Oh, you talked about them last time. They know it's coming.
There are new features. Yeah. Cool. I think I thank you for giving that very detailed answer. I used that time to go through and flag about a zillion questions for myself.
All right.
So
Well,
bring
I'm
them
going to be
on.
behind on that. Let's see. Let's start from the top here. So, question from Nine Hammer: when will we see additional blessings for Icewind Dale?
That is a great question. We've actually got a whole bunch of blessings, I think up through tier six or seven, already planned out. And it's just a matter of deciding when we want to sprinkle those into a content update. So I will double check with Dupuis the next time we have a production meeting and see where those are in the schedule, because they are there and I've signed off on them. And assumedly we can go ahead and release those once they're implemented.
Right. It is a curious question. It's in and done, but not out. Cool. I don't. Wow, we're just gonna butcher these names. I know after the last stream, Erica was like, I think they're gonna cancel you for pronouncing the names wrong.
That'll be our bit on the next episode. We'll start out with that. They're gonna cancel us because you can't pronounce anyone's name.
Oof, not to save my life. All right, Cerberulol. Yep, I'm sorry, Cerberulol. As a new player, I wanted to know what you can do to make this more friendly, as there's so much to do and learn.
Right. So yes, we have a whole bunch of new players in recently, and I think one of the best ways to learn about the game is to interact with the community. So, for example, we're in Twitch right now. There's a very, 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 very friendly Twitch chat going on right to the right of this video.
Are we in Twitch or on Twitch?
We're on Twitch. We're in a browser window that says, I don't know. Anyway, where Twitch is adjacent to us in some way, either in or on. And there's also some really good resources on our Discord, which I believe we link from in-game. And if not, there's now a link, bam, in the chat. Of course, my bam's going to come like 10 seconds after that was posted. Anyway, there's Discord. It's very nice. There are also, there's a subreddit that is very friendly and has a lot of very useful information on it. A whole bunch of really useful guides on the Discord and in the subreddit. So I think one of the best ways to learn about the game is to talk with the other players and ask questions of the other players, because everyone is, in general, really, really friendly. And I think that's the best way to learn. And I guarantee you talk to people and you will learn so much, you will bump your damage up by a zillion times. I'm not even exaggerating, even though that's not a real word.
Exaggerating is a real word.
No, zillion.
Oh. We learn something every day. But yeah, definitely watching this is part of getting that information. So you're doing the right thing.
And there's other streams too. I should say there's a bunch of other streams done that are very, very helpful specifically about the game. Because we do a bunch of streams that are kind of more fun. Like we've got our pancake stream.
Definitely watch the pancake stream
on Friday, and we've got Champions of Psychology it's called something else, isn't it? There's a bunch of other streams. I'm just going to butcher what they are.
Okay.
But yes, so watch our streams and go to the Discord. Final answer.
Cool. Next question. It's from Herkwork.
We did it.
I did. I hope. This is an easy one, or at least it better be an easy one, seeing as we've been doing it for 3 years.
Oh my gosh, this is actually a very hard question.
Do you feel that a new hero every 3 weeks is sustainable? And follow up to that is there a goal on the number of heroes to be in game?
This is actually a very tough question. A hero every 3 weeks is definitely very challenging. I mean, that's 17 new heroes 17 new heroes a year via events, and then we often add 1 or 2 new evergreen champions through the permanent campaigns a year, and so you're getting close to like 18, 19, 20 champions a year. And that gets very hard, not because we can't find ways for you to use all those champions. For example, every time we add a new Modron party. Every time we had a new party instance, that gives you another 10 champions to use. So we're not as worried about that, but certainly about making all of the champions unique and feel special and feel like they've got their own flavor to them. That can be very, very challenging. So I think that's probably our biggest challenge with doing new champions ever all that often. But if you, I mean, we know it's doable, and we know we can continue to do it because we've actually done it before. In Crusaders of the Lost Idols is up to 180 something Crusaders, and they'd have a very similar cadence to us with a new champion or Crusader every 3 to 4 weeks. So I think it's doable. We don't really have a goal number of champions to have in the game. We'll just keep adding them as long as people keep playing and keep being interested in us adding new content. We will keep on doing that, and we will find ways to make it interesting because there's just so many combinations and possibilities out there. But it does get challenging for sure.
Yeah. In addition to that, I mean, one of the things, like being able to have a place to use all of those, that one's a really tough challenge to solve. And I think in Crusaders, they're still working on that as a, you know.
Yeah, Crusaders has the missions mechanic, which is a really good way to make sure those other Crusaders get some use. But they only have one instance. They do go up to 16 slots in their parties, though. So a couple more there, and the ability to send them off on those missions, which are kind of similar to the garrison stuff in World of Warcraft, just purely by coincidence. And yes, totally by coincidence. So, and then in Idle Champions, obviously, you can have multiple parties, and so you can send off 10 champions per party, or 9 if you send them into the Grand Tour campaign. But definitely something we try to scale up with the number of champions that are in the game. Make sure there's always a certain percentage you can be using.
Cool. Before we continue there, Justin, you want to jump down to 25 and follow? We can follow
all the way down. Yes. What would you like to know about question 25?
I was just saying you're going to read that off and I'll follow up.
Oh, sure. Oh, okay, I see. So this is also from the Mickey. We've heard of this person. It's the mouse. Not a question, but a heads up to my previous PS4 question. The Unity upgrade last year helped very a lot, and I reported this on Discord too, but crashes started to happen a lot more often in the last few weeks, at least 1 to 2 times per day. This person streams the game 24/7, so if a version gets better or worse, they will notice.
All right.
That is interesting.
Yeah, we'll keep that in mind. And if it's actually gotten worse in the last few weeks, that generally tends to be a smoking gun of something that got released.
That implies
new
some
champion,
sort of
new tech.
Memory, something sneaking in there.
It's probably a new champion or new tech that would have caused that in the last 2 weeks. So
Then I think the nice thing about stuff that happens like that, where it's kind of you can say like it happened within this period of time, is it is very often something we can find very quickly just by running through the memory manager and seeing, or the memory recorder, whatever the heck it's called.
Profiler.
Profiler. Ha! I'm a developer. I know the words. So that generally is something that's a lot easier to find when it happened that quickly.
Yep. All right. And I'm gonna jump right back up. Oh no, you put I can't read that with your name in front of it.
When I put my cursor
there?
there?
You put your cursor on it. I can't read it.
Cursor
all right.
out of the way.
K Brown 9885 asks, are weak underpowered characters like Black Viper being reviewed for a balance update? Huh, Justin? Are they?
Yeah, it's funny about Black Viper specifically is we've done a couple of promos in the last few months where Black Viper has featured, which is great because I think she's a very interesting character and she looks very cool, and we love the person who created the character as well, so we like to interact with them, and so Dupui's been on my backside about a balance update for Black Viper, and every time I'm like, yes, that sounds like a great idea, and then I inevitably get buried under a mountain of Excel tables and don't get to it. So Black Viper is always always going to be high on that list for an update. As I mentioned earlier with the red gems, something where we can very easily sort of go in there and just add some more power to her that way, and see what other mechanics we can kind of adjust to add power to her. But as for other underpowered characters, I do think that's something that we would like to do. It's something we're trying to add some resources in the company to do. Because right now, in terms of design work for champions and stuff, it's mainly just me. There's some other people in the company who pitch in. So shout out to Dupuy and to Dylan, who occasionally pitch in with some ideas. But for the most part, I am the main person doing 99% of the heavy lifting in terms of champion balance and design. And so my time's been very limited recently, especially today with all these meetings.
That's true. That's right. And you're streaming right now instead of designing.
And I'm streaming right now instead of designing.
I don't know who made this decision.
So it's wait, we did. So yeah, it's something we want to do more of. I want to do more balance updates. I want to be able to mix up the meta from time to time. It's just a matter of finding the time in our day to do it. And so, like I say, we're trying to add some resources in the company for that. But it's also a very slow process because it's not an easy thing. Balancing idle games can be very, very challenging at times, and making sure you don't go too far in one direction or the other. Every champion we put out, I kind of aim for a certain mark in terms of their balance, and you don't really know where it's going to land until it gets into the hands of the players, and you guys take it and use it with champions that we didn't consider using it with, or use it in a certain situation we didn't consider that you would use it in, and then we kind of be like, oh wait, yeah, if you use it that way, it's going to be super OP, or if you use it that way, it's not going to make any sense. So it's a tough thing, and we're trying to build up capacity to do some more of that so that we can do more balance updates, because I do really like balance updates. I do really like shaking up the meta.
For sure. And I hear in the meantime, though, if you go back to that issue being buried under Excel tables, if you just pivot, you'll be fine. At least that's what I'm told.
I think the one thing our players come to this stream for is hilarious Excel jokes.
Excel jokes, for sure.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Pivot tables. Everyone needs a pivot table. All right.
Shall we go to a question for you?
After this one. Okay.
We're
only on question 8. This is a fun one, too. You're going to love it.
Is this the really long one?
Yeah, it's the really long one.
Boy. Let me just put my cursor in the middle of that.
No, thanks. I'll just make up a word there. Okay. We have a question from OG17. Most abilities are post-stack, where the first stack activates, upgrades items, feats, and further stacks are minor increases, not worth compromising standard formations for. But some pre-stack abilities, like Kron's, still exist where going for additional stacks is impactful enough to enable unique formations and push unused characters. Why is post-stack the go-to design when it means character-defining mechanics are largely ignored and have minimal impact on formation building?
Mm-hmm. This is a really good question, and the answer to it is related to how balance is really, really hard. So the problem with pre-stack abilities is they are really, really powerful, like ridiculously powerful, especially if they're buffed by equipment. So like one of the reasons that Kron's ability is just so powerful is because it's buffed by equipment, which means that depending if you've got the full like say 250 levels in the equipment, it's increased by 100%. What that means is it's not just increased by 100%, it's actually increased by 100% per stack, stacking multiplicatively. So you get 8 stacks in there and it's increased by 32 times. And those are just really, really hard to balance because the game is very much in flux. So we could go and be like, okay, we can balance this around the maximum number of stacks that you can have at this point in time, and we can balance this around like a reasonable item level on your item. But inevitably what'll happen is we'll add another champion to the game a little bit later, and or someone will just go nuts with buying chests for that champion and get them like 1,000 item levels, and you'll get to this situation where it's just there's no champion in the game better than that champion because of the way that those abilities stack. And so we've gone post stack a lot more often now in terms of buffing, just because it's a lot easier to keep everyone kind of close together and avoiding having those situations where there's one champion who is just the best champion. Now, is that the only way you can go? It may very well not be. It doesn't mean we're not going to do pre-stack abilities in the future. We just have to be very, very careful about how we do them, because it's just not good for the game long term if there's the best champions. The best future for the game, if I could just snap my fingers and just the balance just kind of worked without me having to actually do the numbers, would be to have every champion kind of excel in a certain situation, but no champion be like, this is a champion you have to use in every single formation because there's just nobody better than them, because the buff you'll get from them is better than any other buff you will ever get. And so that's kind of why we've tended towards post stack a lot more than we've tended towards pre stack in the most recent past. And I will say there was someone else who asked a very similar question, which I've basically answered here. So shout out to Spiffy Man, who asked a very, very similar question to this, and which I feel I have now answered in this answer. So I will cross that out.
All right. Let's jump down to a question here that you may be able to. I'm trying to remember why it was, so maybe together we have an answer for this.
Which question?
I purpled it, but the question reads, when I go to the store, it pauses the game. This discourages me from browsing all your wonderful wares. Why is it this way? This was asked by Trideen. And I feel like this is one of those ones that there was significant debate around, and that we had a reason, and it's slipping my mind right now.
Yeah, I know there were certain situations where I wanted to pause the game because certain data could update and cause potentially like a little bit of not important desyncing, but some desyncing.
But it does actually after 5, like there's an invisible timer on that, and after 5 minutes the game actually resumes on its own. So
does that apply to the chest screen as well?
I believe
still.
So I know the chest screen had some issues with that.
I thought we'd actually removed some of those pauses. I'm actually surprised that this store does pause. Yeah. I know there's certainly situations where, like, if mode run automation is running and it's about to reset you, that you don't necessarily want the store to close on you and reset the game. So I mean that's one pro of the of some of those screens pausing the game. Maybe it's not a very big pro. I've certainly seen that situation has annoyed me before, just when I'm like, if I'm setting up the pipe game in the mode run automation and then the reset level hits, it just closes the whole thing and takes me to the reset. So I feel like this should probably be a setting that you can select to pause when in certain dialogues.
Yeah. And broadly, it doesn't have a huge amount of impact, but certainly early on it can make more of a difference than later on. Right. And before we scroll back up, there was a question here that was related to your previous answer. And that one was, have you ever nerfed champions?
Have we ever nerfed? I really, really try to avoid nerfing champions.
I feel like there's been a couple of situations recently.
We have done it. We have done it. It is a big shame point for me. It never feels good to nerf champions, especially if they've been out in the wild for a while. And sometimes we don't even intentionally nerf them. Like, I guess the most obvious example is with Krull, who got nerfed via a bug fix where like Krull is very OP, and we were like, yeah, okay, Krull is very OP. They're very much in the camp of that what I was talking about in a previous answer, where we don't like there to be just one champion who's the best at everything kind of thing. But I don't like to nerf champions. I'd rather bring everyone else up to that level, or give other options in that seat that are compelling enough to ditch Krull.
Especially if players are invested in that champion. Right? That's the big one, right?
But with Krull, we actually found a bug where all of their debuffs were applying twice. which was obviously not intended, and did contribute to how powerful they were. And so when we fixed that bug, that was technically a nerf, not an intentional nerf, but a nerf via bug fix, which is not a way we like to do nerfs at all, and certainly not intentional. Barrowin, someone's saying in chat, the Dunner is saying in chat, Barrowin was another example where we actually did have to nerf them directly, and we've been trying to bring them back up to a decent power level since then, and just haven't succeeded. And again, that's another one of those multiplicative, those pre-stack multiplicative issues. So don't like to nerf champions. Don't want to do it. That's why we always try to err on the side of not OP when we release things, and if they get to be OP, then hoping they're not too OP.
Yeah, it's always much better accepted to increase the power than to take power you've given away. So
I would always prefer that.
Yep.
Cool.
All right. Why don't we go back up to the 13 or 14, whatever sounds interesting to you.
All right. So here's a question for you, Dave, from Ass Zademi.
Oh, you're just as bad as I am.
Oh, it's Ass Zademi. It's very obvious. It's very well pronounced.
What am I supposed to ask Zudemi? A question?
No, I'm gonna ask you. I'm gonna ask Dave. Question. When revisiting Crusaders of the Lost Idols, I noticed that players have the opportunity to place a Taskmaster, which is the Crusaders equivalent of Familiars, on the auto progress button to make sure the formation always keeps pushing. Why does Idol Champions not have such an option?
All right, here it is. Kevin giving away stuff that we actually make you work for. So it's a good question. I think that was one of those pieces that just we thought about it for quite a long time, and then we added the Modron automation piece that I think always pushes on. Am I thinking about that wrong? It always pushes on the reload, but it's not.
It would not if you. I mean, there's only a couple of adventures where this really makes sense. I think it's ones where there's a mechanic that can just kind of knock you back a level through no fault of your own. Like I'm thinking of ones where like stuff falls from the sky and can just one-shot your guys. And if that happens, even in with motor automation on, it will stop you. It will stop your auto progress.
Yeah.
So this would be a different thing.
I mean, realistically though, if you hit the end, if you hit your wall and then you got knocked back and then you ground there for long enough that you had enough gold that your familiars that are on your heroes levels you up, and then you could push forward, I think you would sort of edge forward with that option on.
Yeah, no, I think that would be a very useful place to plop a familiar.
All right, well, we should make the call on that one.
All right, well, we will put that on the list to talk about.
Okay.
I've got another question for you. There's a whole bunch of them all highlighted in your color. I feel like I've been answering questions forever. So here's one from Breakerfist, who asks,
it's not a long question.
Is it normal for the 2 background cores / parties to drop fewer gems? I have some runs that are getting less than 1 gem per boss.
So the answer on that is simply no. It's not. That's not normal for that to happen, or at least it's not intended for that to happen. And so that should be. You should open a ticket for that, and Sean can take a look. I know we had for the longest time issues with the display. That comes the welcome back display for those parties, and I know that some data in that was being overwritten and it wasn't aggregating the number to display for you properly, but some of those gems actually were, or rather the correct number was being given out or credited to the account, but it wasn't showing. So it's possible that it's that, but certainly if you open a ticket, Sean can check that for you, because we do have a history of all those records that we can check through and see what bosses were killed and what gems were credited for them. And so certainly if you are not getting the correct number, then that is a bug and we will have someone look at it.
Cool. Let's get you another one here.
All right.
Another question from Spiffy Man, who asks, any word on when we might see iPad performance updates? Me and several others on the platform are having the game crash many times per day or per hour. I wonder if that's related to the the PS4 one as well.
It could be. I mean, but before I answer that, I just feel like having a name like Spiffy Man is not fair. That's easy for you to pronounce. See, I get the hard ones.
No. There's 3 S's and
there's only 2.
3 F's. Oh, there's 2. Okay, see, I can't see it through. I can't actually read. You have to roll the tongue on those S's quite a bit. Spiffy Man.
All right. Still much easier than, well, yeah. Anyway, so that's a good question. So performance issue. I take it from the question actually that it's more of a crashing issue. I mean, a little bit more follow-up might be helpful in terms of if the game's actually performing badly and then crashing, like if things start to stutter and then die, or if it's relative to like a memory issue. Like one of the biggest issues with the iPads in particular is that. In all of Apple's wisdom, they don't give them a lot of RAM, not a lot of memory, and then a big chunk of that is just allocated off to iOS, so we can't actually use it. And what happens is the game gets close to using more than, I think in a lot of them it's about 70% of the total. iOS just closes the app. It says, nope, you've got too much, bug off, goodbye. And so they're. Not that I'm pinning that on them, actually. We've gone over that quite a few times with our graphics to try and make them really optimized for that. And it is likely that that's something that's been, that hasn't had a good look at recently. And so if there's, the question would be, first question is it tied to a performance issue? Like, is it getting slow and then crashing? And then the second question would be, is it happening on specific areas or with specific champions? Because usually when that sort of thing happens, it's because some sort of a very large effect or complicated monster has been exported in a very inefficient way to the sprite memory, and it's easy to happen, and it can slip through. And when the artists are doing their exports on that, they actually, I think actually at least half of them don't have the tool to check that. So we can definitely take a look at that. But following up on that, I'd probably open it. Whoever's our Spiffy Man, if you have a specific area that's happening, or it seems to be happening with specific champions, definitely open that in a ticket and reference this and tell Sean he can poke me about it, and I will I'll see that that's looked at. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm going through and trying to. There was actually one question. There was one question that came in that's somewhat related to that. It's an iPhone question. It's all the way down here at question 47.
Holy smokes!
Which I thought I might just ask you as a little bit of a follow-up because it's an interesting story. So Henry Lonewind asks, why does the iPhone version have the PC UI? Those buttons are so tiny, it is literally unusable.
Literally unplayable. Yeah.
Literally unplayable. I don't disagree.
Well, it's not quite that bad, but it is difficult depending on the size of your iPhone, if you're on a smaller iPhone, and then other usability factors come in too, right? Like, unfortunately, well, let's back up on the question for a second. So
let's tell a fun story.
Yes, we'll have a fun story about UI design, and it all goes back actually to Crusaders. So we mentioned Crusaders a few times here, and if you're not familiar, it was the precursor to Champions. We learned a lot of things from that game. It's very similar in sort of the base level stuff. And in that game, we actually we did release on mobile as well, and we did a complete UI redesign to try and make that more user-friendly. But one of the things that we learned along the way with that is that there's a lot of information. Like, this game is a very information-rich game, and because of that, it's actually it's really important to have all of the details that you see on the screen at the same time. And so when we were putting Champions together and going to be putting out a mobile version, we decided that we would do a tablet version only. And the main reason we were doing that is because we didn't think that we thought something about the game was lost in simplifying the UI so that everything was sort of separated. And so for the longest time, it was only available on tablets. But then along came the Samsung Galaxy S9, the Note S9.
Something
Note
like
9.
that. I don't remember the specific phone.
Yeah, but it was flagged.
tablet.
Yeah, it was a phone that was classified as a tablet, which is great until Google came along and reclassified it as a phone. And based on the way that we had been releasing the builds, which were tablet only, not for phones, we had a large number of Note 9 users who all of a sudden could not play the game. And we were sort of stuck in a rock and a hard place, because by opening it up we couldn't just open it up for Note 9 players, we'd have to actually open it up for all phone players. So we thought that one over. There was much discussion, and the end result was we decided that we weren't going to cut the Note 9 players off. We were just going to give them the UI as is, and if other players on smaller phones tried it and they found that it wasn't that for whatever reason their phone was too small for it, that we would at least let them know that, hey, it wasn't designed for this, but we're letting you try play at your own. I wouldn't say risk. It's more like, yeah,
risk of your eyesight, maybe.
Yeah, but what we did find is that actually quite a few players picked it up on phones, and at that point we also released it on iPhone for parity, and a lot of players actually didn't have a huge amount of trouble with it. There's sort of it split into yeah. Certain players were perfectly happy with the tiny UI, and other players certainly have the same reaction of like, it's tiny, it's literally unusable. Why did you do this? I hate you. I hate you. I hate you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying to think of the best way to describe that difference there. But yeah, it's definitely not for everyone. If you're trying to play on your iPhone, you're finding that it's too small. A tablet is a great alternative if you've got one. Or of course the PC versions, but it's there on the phones for people who have young eyes and have small fingers, because they seem to enjoy it, but not for everyone, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. So we're getting close to the end of our
Holy
hour.
Smokes!
Yeah, I know, it's flown by.
Yeah.
I'm looking at question 38 here. I think would be a really good question for me. And if you want to maybe find one more, that would be a really good question for you. And then we can start to prepare to wrap up.
I think we had more detailed answers today and a little less number of questions. So
I think we did, yeah.
Hopefully, if your question wasn't answered, you got something interesting out of the questions that were.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so question 38. This is a question from Anna Banan GG. Anna Banan GG. I'm saying this, All right. Anyway,
it's like banana, but with the Anna put at the front. I mean, what's hard about that?
Anna, but
Anna Bana. GG.
Maybe I'm just bad at this.
We're going to put together a clips episode of just Dave pronouncing names. That'll be the end of the season of Developer Insights.
They're like, move on, answer the question. We don't need this.
Get on that, Todd.
I'm a new Epic player. In some stream last week, I heard that the Grand Tour of the Sword Coast is an ongoing campaign, while others are one-time campaigns. Can you elaborate about this, and what plans about campaigns about campaigns in general?
Yeah. So a bunch of people would love to see this clips episode, by the way, Dave. Anyway, yes. So there are a couple of different types of campaigns in the game. There are permanent campaigns, and those are ones that stick around forever and you can do at your own pace because they don't ever expire or go away. And there's actually two sort of types within those permanent campaigns. There are the ones that are based off of the D&D books, like Tomb of Annihilation, like Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maiden, like the other two, Waterdeep Dragon Heist, and the one from last year with the Avernus, Descent into Avernus. And those ones are permanent, but they're also a fixed length. So what happens is you go through those. I think there's 12 to 14 adventures in each with all their variants, and we will not be adding more adventures beyond those. We will be adding more variants over time, but not more adventures once those are finished. With the Grand Tour, it's more of a forever campaign. So we're just going to keep on adding more adventures to that as we have time, forever and ever and ever. And so that's the two sort of permanent campaigns. And then there are also event campaigns. Event campaigns pop up every 3 weeks. Those are time limited. You have generally 11 or 12 days to do as much as you can in those. And those are the ones where you can recruit new champions every 3 weeks. There's generally three new champions every 3 weeks that you can recruit in there. And then there's also time gate campaigns as well, which are even more limited. Once those open, they're only open for 3 days, and you can also recruit champions and gear them up in those. So those are all the different types of campaigns. Grand Tour is a permanent one that'll go on forever. There's the permanent ones that don't go on forever, and then there's the event ones and the time gate ones that are limited. Bam.
All right. Well, you didn't eat the remaining time, and I'm looking through these questions, looking for something that would be interesting.
We could answer 49 down. I think 49 down here has an easy answer.
Oh, I didn't. For some reason, I didn't see that one. All right.
So I'll ask it here.
Go for it.
So Sunstar DK, that's a really easy one. Asks, is there any plan to implement the Gamepad UI on Epic Games? And if yes, when?
Do we not have that available on Epic Games?
The reason I highlighted this one is I think that we do. I think you can go into the settings and toggle on the Gamepad UI, and if you can't, then I do not know why not.
I wouldn't be shocked if that's tied to the game platform ID, and if it's not Steam, you don't get it.
Well, in that case, the when is as soon as we tell Peter to turn it on, because it would be super duper easy.
Yeah.
Yes. CNE Sean does say you do have to have a controller plugged in, I think, before that'll show up. I think that option only shows up if you have a controller plugged in.
That seems, if that's the case,
otherwise,
I don't agree with that design decision. That's awful. That's some Apple thinking right there.
That could very well be.
I mean, I think at the very least you do need to have. I do think it's locked on the platform ID internal. Okay. So we
can turn that on.
Yes, there's no reason that shouldn't be available.
Yeah, because that is it's a super slick UI. Though it does have those same sort of things that you were talking about earlier, Dave, where it's just the density of the information is very hard to get across effectively. And I think we took another shot at it in the Gamepad UI. That's very different from the way that we display information in the normal UI. And I think we did better in some places and not as good in some other places. So I think it is
especially for the information dense portions. Those have that's tough. But otherwise the Gamepad UI actually looks great. So
yeah, so if it's only on Steam, we can definitely turn that on Epic.
Okay.
I do not see any reason we could not.
Before we use up all the remaining time on that, I enjoy this cheeky question here. Wouldn't putting a familiar on the auto progress button just constantly toggle it?
Yes. Yes. But you know what? One of the nice things about being game developers is we could make it so it wouldn't. So it would only toggle it on. We could do that.
That's right. If it's off, it makes it on. And if it's on, makes it on.
Yeah. It's really just it's an auto progress honor.
It's really unintuitive behavior for something that is clicking on the button over and over again.
Yes.
That toggles.
Yes.
All right. I think we're out of time. Do you think we're out of time?
I do think we're out of time. Yeah. I mean, the clock up here says it's 2:57, but the computer clock says it's 2:55. I trust the computer clock more than I trust the clock that appears to be connected to a power box via a very thin cable.
The thin cable makes it inaccurate, I believe.
It does. Because the interference gets into the cable with the neutrons and the tachyons and the dilithium crystals. And so
we covered this before. It's trilithium or bust.
Okay. Quad lithium.
I don't think that's a thing.
Okay. Anyway, if we didn't get to your question this week, don't worry. You will have another opportunity, as we will be live again at the same time next week.
Assuming we haven't been canceled.
Well, we're probably not going to cancel ourselves.
Yep. Okay, then. Anyway, that time is, of course, 2 p.m. Pacific next Thursday.
And before we sign off, though, we would like to thank our tireless mods. I believe Sasha was putting the questions into the document this week, so thank you very much, Sasha.
Yes, and thank you for tagging them with the appropriate tags this time. Not that
Yes,
they
it
didn't
was
do it
much
last time,
easier.
but there's a lot of questions and we got to read through them, so that's perfect. Anyway, thank all of you for hanging out, watching the stream, enjoying the game, and asking us such wonderful questions. Without you, no one here would get to do what they do. Or wait, no one here would get to do what we do.
That's true. We would have to do something else.
All right. That is that. All right. And what do? I push this button, right? Yep.
Bye.
I didn't write another audio joke.
Oh, Dave.